I'm here in our Toronto office, joined by our VP of North America, Jacob Mee. It's been a whole 2 years since he moved over from the UK to set up our North American office. So, having recruited go-to-market teams in both the UK and North America, he's got a pretty unique perspective on just how different it is when you are helping ambitious SaaS scale-ups scale. The biggest difference I've seen, I've only been here a week, is the sheer size of the market. It can seem a little bit overwhelming. So how does that impact hiring?
So in general, the market's about 4.5 times bigger. Obviously, initially you think, great, way more talent to pick from, way more candidates to speak to. I'm going to have a pick of the bunch here. But in reality, the candidates are going to have maybe 6 or 7 different opportunities to pick from, whereas in Europe, it might only be a couple.
A lot of that competition will come from, I imagine, homegrown startups, US-founded companies, US headquartered companies. Where do European startups begin when you're competing without a known brand or a known entity?
So there's a few things here. I think the first thing to do is really understand the market, and not just the market in general. I think that's table stakes, but understanding your market. So who's your ICP? That's where if you're remote or in office, that obviously plays a part. And then it's understanding the talent market as well. There are so many SaaS startups that haven't quite made it to Europe. So you may not have heard of them, but still have excellent pedigree in them from a talent perspective. So
when you're new to the market, how do you know what that pedigree looks like? How can you see that pedigree?
Yeah, so there's a few key things. I think it varies from company to company, and it will depend on your specific hiring criteria, obviously. But in our ecosystem, it's the people primarily. So who have they hired? Where have they come from? Where have the leadership been? Have they built out any famous scale-ups before? And then the VCs as well. Who else have they invested in?
And I assume those startups are the ones you're competing with for talent. So how do you compete? How do you stand out?
A lot of candidates are genuinely excited about the idea of working for a European startup, especially being first on the ground. And if they're not, they're probably the wrong candidate anyway. Preparing in terms of what traction you've already had in the market, whether that be US customers, do you work with any partners that are going to help you get established in the market, but also the more logistical things. If you're headquartered in a non-native English speaking country, is all your marketing collateral relevant and suitable for the US market? Do you have an entity? Yeah. Do you have the benefits set up? Because obviously that works pretty different to Europe as well.
Great advice, but that sounds like that could apply to when you enter any new markets, probably the same things. What about the US specifically?
I think the US and the nature of the talent market is the pace, obviously, so how quickly everything moves, and also the transactional nature of it. People are always happy to make the connection, even if it's for 6 months down the line, a year down the line. Qualifying their intent, the willingness to seriously consider something if it matches to their specific criteria.
That sounds good for the candidate experience. From a hiring perspective, is there any way that you can mitigate your risk throughout this process?
I think so. I think being extremely proactive, and by that I mean engaging with passive candidates. So candidates that aren't looking, these are people who aren't applying for jobs, who aren't responding to emails, who need a bit of extra effort to engage with. But once you get them with a very tailored message specific to what they're interested in and why the time is now for your company, the chances are they're probably only going to be considering your company, which alleviates all the competition risk and means you've got a much better chance of landing your absolute ideal candidate.
What are your key rules for engaging passive talent in this market?
So it comes down to the what and the how. So what message are you going to them with? Is it tailored? Is it specific? And is it exciting? And then the how. And that comes down to calling these people. I spoke to one candidate from a top tier SaaS company. They said that they get about 30 to 50 messages on LinkedIn per week, only 1 or 2 calls. So calling really does the most.
So there's a lot of stuff there. As a CEO, you would also have your normal day job. So that's a crazy amount to take on.
Most CEOs at European startups do have some form of network in the US. So my first advice would be speak to them, get a sense of the market, start having those conversations. Pretty quickly though, that time will obviously add up, and the network will run out at some point. So I think it's really important that you have either a leader within your business who's done that before. I built a team in the US, not just a sales team, but a whole go-to-market pod, or look for help through someone external who knows the market and has done it before.
The recruitment market is quite different in the US as well. So when you are finding a partner, how do you find someone that you can trust?
And it depends on what your growth plans are and how quickly you're looking to scale as well. But what I've found is the size of the recruitment partner, recruitment agency matters. There are a lot of one-man bands in the US, which definitely work for some searches. They often have good networks, but when you need that elasticity to scale across maybe a couple of salespeople, a pre-salesperson, a BDR, a CSM, it can be quite hard to scale that. And if you go too big, the challenge is then, are they going to market specifically for you? Because this is going to be the first call that any of these candidates receive about your company in the US market, and you want to make it solely about that and have a conversation primarily about your company. Yeah, and the other thing on that is, do they have referenceable clients that you can speak to? Many of our clients that we've helped previously are more than happy to speak to European founders or sales leaders who are looking to make that first move. And often that conversation turns into more than just hiring another go-to-market challenger as well.
And it's quite rewarding to be able to create those connections and facilitate communities and network building, because it can have a real impact.
100%. I know we've been speaking about the differences between Europe and the US here, but at the end of the day, everyone's always happy to help, unless it's trying to cut you in, of course.